Hello and welcome to the Wargamer, and you're joining me for another painting tutorial. This time I'll be showing you how to paint the Samurai from Warlord Games' Test of Honor, and I'll be using the Army Painter range of paints to do so. After assembling and priming the miniature with a grey spray primer, the first task is to paint the trousers of the miniature using deep blue. This will act as a really nice base coat that we can build up from in later layers. Now I would recommend applying this slightly thinned down with some water and then waiting for the first layer to dry and then applying a second thinned down layer over the top, and this will give us the best coverage possible that we can build up highlights from in future steps. The next step in painting the blue areas of the miniature is to highlight them with crystal blue. Now I'd recommend using a small brush and just a small amount of paint on the tip of your brush, and we'll be picking out the folds in the cloth. Now this will just really enhance the detail in these areas of the miniature, and we want to leave the darker blue still visible in the recesses. With the trousers completed, we can now begin work on the armour itself. Now we're going for a red colour of the Takeda Clan, and for this I'll be starting off with a base coat of Vampire Red. Now as with the base coat for the trousers, I would recommend mixing in just a small amount of water here just to thin down the paint slightly, and then apply a second layer once the first layer has fully dried, and this will give us the best coverage possible. The next step in painting the armour is to apply a highlight of pure red. Now I'll be using a thin brush with just a small amount of paint on the tip just to very lightly pick out some of the details in the armour. Now this will not only enhance the details, but it'll also help to brighten up the colour of the armour, giving us a much richer and brighter red. The next step in painting the red armour is to apply a wash of red ink across the surface. Now this will pool into all of the recesses, all of the nooks and crannies, bringing out that detail that we want to see in the final miniature. Now it will also help to tie in the two layers of Vampire Red and also Pure Red together as well. Just make sure you don't overspill onto the blue areas that we've already painted. After the red ink wash has dried, we'll now be applying a final highlight to the red armour, and this will be an extreme highlight of Mythical Orange. Now this will allow us to bring out the details that might have been obscured in the previous wash, and also add an even lighter tone to the armour, making the bright red really stand out. Now ideally we will want to focus these highlights to the upper sections of the armour, and this will give the impression that light is reflecting off the surfaces towards the top sections of the miniature. Now that the armour has been completed, we can now start working on the face. Now we want to start off with a base coat of tanned flesh. Now this will give us a darker skin colour that we can then build up from and leave this in the recesses to help enhance the details later on. I will now be applying a layer of flesh wash over the skin of the miniature. Now this will pool into the recesses and really help to enhance the shading on the face. The final step in painting the skin is to highlight using Barbarian Flesh. Now we just want to use a very small amount on the tip of a brush. Mixing in just a small amount of water here will really enhance and help us to control the flow of the paint. And we want to pick out some of the more prominent facial features such as the nose, the cheekbones, the lips, and also the chin as well. The next step in painting the miniature is to paint all of the remaining cloth areas on the miniature, and we're painting all of these areas with matte black. Now just be very careful when applying these to the miniature because you don't want to overspill onto the areas that we've already painted. Following the matte black base coat, the next step is to apply a layer of Necromancer Cloak. Now this will allow us to build up the highlights and enhance some of the detailing in these black areas while still keeping a very dark colour that we're looking for with the original black colour. When applying the paint at this step, I would recommend just applying more over the raised areas of the miniature, leaving the matte black visible in the recesses. The final step in painting the black areas is to apply an extreme highlight of Dungeon Grey. Now we're focusing this around some of the more intricate details in order to enhance them slightly, but I can also apply it on some of the upper sections to represent light hitting the miniature from above. The next task in painting our miniature is to pick out the metallic areas. Now, this includes the chainmail under the armour and also the blade itself. Now I'll be using a plate mail metal for this. It's slightly brighter and it'll help us to really make this silver areas stand out against the red of the miniature. For this next step we want to both darken the colour of the chainmail on the arms and also bring out some of the details. So for this I'll be using a wash of dark tone ink. Again, just make sure you cover the area thoroughly but don't overspill into the areas that we've already painted. I'll now be continuing with painting the metallic areas by applying greedy gold to both the headdress and also the handguard on the blade as well. As with the previous metallic steps, we want to make sure that we don't overspill onto the areas that we've already painted, as it can be quite difficult to overpaint metallic paints with non-metallic paint. So just take your time, use a thin brush and make sure you have a steady hand. For this step, we'll be applying yet another wash over the miniature. This time I'll be using light tone ink and applying it over the gold areas. Now this will have a twofold effect. First of all, it will help to improve the detailing in these areas, but also give the gold a slightly reddish hue as well. The very last step in painting our samurai warrior is to apply a final highlight of shining silver. Now we're applying this to both the silver metallic and also the gold metallic areas on the miniature. Around the blade I'll be using it to focus on the actual edge itself and really make the blade seem sharp, but also be picking out some of the detailing in the gold areas as well. And here we have the completed miniature. Now I've painted this miniature in colours based around the clan of Takeda. Now whilst I focus on the samurai for this tutorial, you could apply the exact same colours and techniques to your Ashiguru spearmen and also missile troops. If you would like to support me in making future tutorials, you can do so by checking out my Patreon page. From there you can donate to me from as little as $1 a month, which has really helped me in producing future content. And you can find a link to my Patreon page in the description below. To find out what projects I'm currently working on, do be sure to check out both my Facebook and Instagram pages, which you can also find links to in the description below. So until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.